Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Vienna Shorts 2020, and welcome to this panel discussion with the title Infinity and Beyond, Curating Films for an Online Audience. In this panel, we're going to have a chat about the current lockdown model that festivals are adapting and what we think the consequences will be for the future. So a small attempt of predicting what the future might bring. The idea for the panel was born after a journalist asked the programmers for Vienna Shorts if they would have chosen other films, would they have known that the festival would take place online? How much does a festival's content change, or indeed should change, with a stronger online presence? As I have the feeling that social distancing will be an issue for quite a longer period, hybrid festivals will probably still be a necessity for some more months. Festivals have had a certain format already for a long time to make sure that they function the best in their role in the film industry. But this current period shakes this up. During this period, we clearly notice what we were doing that was working well, but also the things that we might be able to improve on. As short films mostly lack this more classical distribution outside of festivals, short film festivals are also more flexible and could adapt to a different model more easily. And this is the topic I would like to explore the upcoming hour. I'm happy to have a great panel to discuss this topic with, whom all now have experience in going online. The first person I would like to introduce is Emilia Macic. She's the festival director for Shortwaves Festival, which should have taken place this March, but postponed to August. And in the meantime, they also did a small online edition, which just ended. We have Leslie Raymond, the executive director of the Ann Arbor Film Festival, which also was planned for March and also did take place back then. And they went online with the festival. We have Doris Bauer, co-director of Vienna Shorts, which festival you are currently visiting, and as you have noticed, is online. And then last but not least, we have Helene Gerritsen, the head of Go East, Festival of Central and Eastern European Film, which also moved online for a big part of their festival. My name is Wouter Jansen, and I run the sales and festival distribution company called Square Eyes, formerly known as Some Shorts, and I will be moderating the panel today. So as a short practical note, if you have any questions, you can just drop them in the chat and we'll try to address them during the talk. And afterwards, the talk will also stay available online. So if you want, you can always revisit it. So the first topic I would like to explore and dive into is programming. And I first would like to ask Doris and Leslie, because both of your festivals, Ann Arbor and Vienna Shorts, moved online in a format that resembles the original festival quite strongly. So you kind of kept the original timetable, more or less, and worked with live screenings. Why did you decide on keeping this format? And maybe in the case of Leslie also, how did you look back on this decision? Leslie, do you want to start?
Sure. So when we made that first, thank you for inviting me to this panel. It's really a great honor to be here and be a part of Vienna Shorts. So I'm grateful for the invitation. And it's been really wonderful to launch and see what's going on online with what you're all doing. And it's very exciting. When we decided to put the Ann Arbor Film Festival online, we had gone from just a whirlwind of a day, from being on the radio at 7:30 in the morning, being interviewed and talking about that it looked like we were going to still move ahead. I was on the radio with the director of the theater, the Michigan Theater, where we showed our programs, and we were following their lead to decide whether or not to proceed. Now, by the end of the day, we were at an emergency board meeting deciding to not hold the in-person festival because the governor of Michigan that day had started to put some parameters into place, and no gatherings over 50 and so on and so forth. So at that point, we had about 10 days till our festival was going to launch. And when we decided to actually go through with it, we wanted to stick with the original dates because everybody was already oriented around those dates, but we knew it was going to be challenging. So there are some things that had to happen immediately with the programming. Normally we would show two different programs in the theater at once. So because we wanted to do a single live stream, we thought that would be most accessible for everybody. We wanted to provide a single live stream. We wanted to keep it around the same time frame as the normal festival. We moved everything 3 hours earlier to try to accommodate some of our European community. But so we had to make some quick decisions, and we thought, let's stay married to our mission and make sure that we put the films and competition programs, as our most important programming and our priority. We wanted to put those out first. So we had 14 shorts and competition programs and about 10 feature films in competition. So we slotted those in around the shorts and competition. We reached out to filmmakers to ask their permission, and I think we had about 140 films that we were going to show. Only 3 declined to participate out of those. 2 were because they were celluloid and had very, strong feeling about the aesthetic quality of celluloid in the theater, so they declined, and 1 due to distribution relationships. So in terms of the programming, we had to cut the special programs. I think if we had more time to engineer and design the festival, we would have chosen to keep them. The other program that we had to cut was what we call off the screen, which is installations and workshops, lectures, and live cinema performances. Most of those we cut, although we did invite folks who were going to have their live cinema performance as part of a shorts and competition program. We invited them to give us a pre-recorded performance to share with the audience. So many chose to do that, some declined. And we had after parties planned, and in one case, Kit Young from Chicago requested, could he do a live stream of his performance? And so we sent our audience to his Twitch channel directly after, I think it was our Friday night program. And I found that to be super exciting to have that live element. So in terms of the programming, we just, had to trim back, and we wanted to, keep our commitments to all the filmmakers who had gone through our screening and submissions process.
Yeah. And Doris?
I think the Corona crisis hit us in mid-March, like everybody else in the world, and we weren't really prepared for this situation. And in this moment, we had 3 options for our festival: to cancel or to postpone or going online. And so we decided to take this challenge and hold the festival online. But the only reason was this crazy, exceptional situation. We decided to go online, but a lot of programs were already finished. So the competition programs, they were ready to go. So we already sent out the curated programs, they weren't ready, but the competition programs, they were finished. So we decided to stick with the program and also to stick with the basic idea of a festival. So the technical aspect was quite important for us, and it was difficult, but I think we managed somehow. We managed to provide live screenings in the end. That was quite a challenge for our programmer, but he managed to do this and to give us this live moment also for an online edition. And this was really important for us as well. I mean, the dates were out for our festival, so we wanted to stick with the dates as well. And we tried to stick with those basic ideas. So we have moderations for the programs, and we have Q&As afterwards. I mean, the stuff we present, I mean, the things we present as films are pre-recorded videos, but at least you can see, as an audience, you can see the filmmakers behind the films, and this was really important for us as well. a few other things, but I think we will talk about those things later as well.
Okay. And Emilia, your official festival hasn't taken place yet, but you already did like a small online, I don't know if you really presented it as a festival, but at least an online event, which you organized during the quarantine already.
Well, we didn't really have any other option during mid-March crisis. Our festival dates were from 17th to 23rd. And the lockdown in Poland was pretty early. All the cinemas were shut down already at 10th of March. So, and it was without any option for us to prepare, because we were still in Poland under 50 cases of corona. So it was very early and very unexpected lockdown. I think we were more or less first European Short Film Festival cancelled. So back then it was more a decision of either cancel or postpone rather than go online. And we chose to postpone, and also with quite small team and flexible festival formula, we are more or less to proceed with the festival in August on completely different, it was going to be something else than we initially planned. But since it's 5 months in between, and we have a very nice and supportive audience, we decided to use this online situation as much as we can, meaning preparing this small online release of 7 Polish shorts in collaboration with the biggest film archive in Poland, Ninateka, which was, we didn't present it as festival. It was more like short waves online rather than short waves festival online, not to cause any clickbait situation. But this online activity we prepared was something that really opened our eyes to the online possibilities, because we reached a national audience that we would never expect to happen. And now it was more like a test for August, because we're gonna do some sort of hybrid edition, which will have online and offline elements, because we believe that first of all, cinemas will be reopened. They're already reopening in Poland, but at the same time, we want to keep this knowledge of what online film festival could be and what possibilities it creates.
Yeah, because you also already really, like, because you programmed it later on, you really had it in mind, like these films will be for online instead of kind of moving a selection that was made for cinema online. Like, because when we were talking about it before, you already said that you had kind of different ways of judging.
Yes, there were many reasons behind the final selection of this online release. I think first of all, those were films which we previously selected for either Polish competition or Polish experimental film competition. And we combined from this selection of 25 films, we curated a special online program made of 7 films. And yes, we did have many reasons in our heads. First of all, this platform does not use geo-blocking. So because of this, we had to carefully discuss the rights with all the filmmakers. It was very important. And second of all, we really had in mind that most people will watch it on a small screen. So for instance, we pre-watched the selection on laptops or even phones to see if this is actually gonna work. I expected that people would watch this film at home, very distracted, very often during, I don't know, daytime. So I was really having in mind that I have to think of different content.
Yeah. And Helene, you're also the most feature-length oriented festival now in our group. You decided to only move certain parts of the festival online. For instance, the competition, you did a move online, but you postponed it to November. Can you talk a bit about the thoughts behind this, like which parts you did move online, and also maybe talk a bit about the extended media program that you moved online, which is, in my opinion, maybe the most difficult part to do in an online space?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I was super skeptical from the very start. like, I don't believe in online festivals until we are able to like matrix, like plant ourselves in the virtual world with all the senses that we would have in a cinema. We won't have festivals, but you can offer interesting stuff online. So, and also second thing is we are part of the German Film Institute and Film Museum. So we're very much cinema oriented, and that's also part of our mission. So that was also a reason for us to decide to only put a small part online and postpone well, we actually partnered with a different film festival in the city where we're organized, and they adopted our competition. As you probably know, with feature lengths, both documentaries and fiction, the situation is a little different than with shorts because there are world sales agents involved. There's just all these economic aspects also that play a role, and so we decided to. But also, our shorts competition wasn't shown online.
Okay.
And we made a very clear distinction between professional visitors that got an accreditation and got access to our media library, and the festival audience that got just a selection of films online, and those we curated. Well, the program was already ready when we made the decision that we cannot take place as usual in May. But then we carefully selected like the films that we were going to show online, and we paired them and we released them. Every day we released 2 of them. It was like much more editorial work that you introduce them and you pair them consciously, and you say like, okay, these films kind of have a dialogue, the 2 of them. But it was never intended as a online festival. It was more like a curated, small, amateurish streaming platform that we had basically. And we used Vimeo, so something that a lot of people were already familiar with, and was super easy for our team to handle as well. And another really important aspect is also that we work with a lot of freelancers, and we didn't want anyone to lose their jobs. So, and a lot of those are connected to cinemas, or also like the company that does our subtitles. They do live projection of subtitles. So if we would have moved online completely, those guys would have lost a job, which means that they have to fire people. So those were all considerations that led to our decision to go hybrid. And then the last thing, because I really thought we have to cancel the virtual reality competition. But then our curator, who's based in Moscow, he partnered up with some VR artists who in previous years have competed also in Wiesbaden at our festival. And they actually came with a proposal to design like a virtual world where you can watch the 360 degrees program, but also the interactive VR works. And technically it was quite complicated. We did have to reallocate a part of the budget, but in the end, it really worked out. It really worked. And it was not only accessible for people with headsets, but also from your PC, you had to install some software. It's of course very nerdy and not very accessible, but it was also great fun because people were developing something and they recreated our main theater. It's still online, actually. It's accessible if you want to check it out. And they created a rooftop, which looked very much like a suburb in Eastern Europe where you could hang out, basically. So people in hot dog avatars from LA or in a cat suit from South Korea came to visit us and saw VR from Eastern Europe for the first time. We never had these kind of visitors. So that was quite a discovery that you could do that online, actually. And also the interactive element was really there. We had artists' talks. It was like a couch on the rooftop where the curator was having talks with me. I did my first interview ever in virtual reality. So, and you could also, as a group, visit the 360-degree works. And of course, the perspective doesn't always work, but that was quite a unique experience, I would say. So we will stick with that in future. Definitely.
Okay, yeah. But you didn't, because you said that this wasn't really like an online edition, but you also didn't really communicate that you postponed the festival or anything, right? This was the main festival dates still.
Well, we have a lot of sections, and one of them is also the symposium, which is more of an academic affair with historical films, a lot of stuff on 35 millimeters or horrible formats like DigiBeta, and we don't have money to digitize all of that. So hopefully that will take place in summer. So what we communicated basically is that we have a hybrid festival and that we are spread out throughout the whole year. But of course, we wanted to honor the original festival week, and we did so with some events online and some also some extended Q&As and discussion panels.
Yeah. So we already spoke a little bit about it, but watching films online is different than offline. I also noticed for myself that I find it quite difficult to sit down and actually watch a full program like I would normally do in the cinema, which is of course also because when I'm watching films at home, that's usually for my work, so I'm a bit more efficient with that. If you would know that next year there would be another hybrid edition like this year was of your festival, do you think that would affect your curation, or perhaps also like the way you program films in these 80-minute slots or the festival duration? Do you think something would change about this? Whoever wants to start?
I can start.
Yeah.
Because I think, of course, curatorship will change itself, but also the way we will construct the whole events should change, because copy pasting, I think this was the biggest challenge, to actually find a formula suitable for you. This is maybe more of a festival director decision, which way to direct the whole thing. But I think what we need most at the moment is to find a more interactive festival formula in general, because when people attend film events at home, view their internet browsers, it's so much different than going to actual cinema, meaning that most people I know usually use internet mostly for social media or news. So they are really not used to many little factors bombarding them all the time rather than staying focused. So I think we would have to find a way to somehow grab their attention and make maybe the whole process develop the way that they will find this patience to find attention, to check out our programs carefully, to give our curators or ourselves a possibility to stick to our curatorship, because I don't want to change the way I pick films, and I don't want to force filmmakers to, I don't know, produce different kind of cinema which is suitable for this attention span of the future audience, who cannot stay without smartphone in their hands for 90 minutes, right? Maybe it's a controversial point, but
but so it would be less about the type of films that you select, but more about the way you present them to the audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same here. I would well, if this situation continues, I will probably quit, because I didn't sign up to become the boss of a streaming platform. But there were really interesting initiatives. Also, like in Berlin, some cinemas actually started renting out professional projectors, and so people from buildings could watch films together projected on walls. It's like a wall on a screen. A wall is a screen, but from an apartment window, basically. So a house together, they could decide, okay, we would like to watch one of these films from your program. And partnering up with initiatives with like that is, of course, attractive and interesting, but also a lot of work. Yeah, and I would not want to adapt our film choices either. And I think with feature length, that's perhaps even more difficult. And also, yeah, people are just busy with their daily lives. We got a lot of complaints also from people, especially about the talks that we offered, from moms putting kids to bed around the typical time where you would have a talk, like 7 p.m. in the evening. So a lot of those household issues become very important. So yeah, you'd really have to rethink a lot of your programming, but I guess not the types of films themselves.
Yeah, because you were also already, when we spoke beforehand, talking about when you noticed how people are actually watching the film.
Yeah. So yeah, we have this. Vimeo does very good, extensive statistics, and we found out that 39% of our audiences watched films on their mobile phones. And this is not just a shorts program, but it's also a film like The Painted Bird, which is shot on 35mm in black and white and is almost 3 hours long. So I don't know how, but people do it.
Yeah, depressing. And Leslie, maybe you can also talk a bit about, because you're quite positive about how your streaming went, and also when we spoke before, you were talking a bit about like the audience interaction, also with this live chat that you did, which is now also more or less happening with Vienna Shorts on the Vivox app. But could you maybe talk a bit about that, Leslie, how you experienced that during the festival?
Sure. Well, when we decided to stream the whole festival one single time, and make it available to everybody all at once, and we decided we weren't going to go through the extra technical hurdle to make things available online later. Although, and not just the technical hurdle, but the logistical hurdle of getting permission from the filmmakers, with such a short period of time. We wanted to offer it as a single time event. So what we found, and we left our platform is also Vimeo, and we left the chat function open. And we did talk about it amongst our team. And there was some concern that obviously would have to be monitored, and we weren't sure what that chat might be like if people would interfere. But what we did find is that we might have anywhere from 300 to 600 streams going on in a single program at a single time. And then we would see maybe 20 people or so in the chat, having a very animated conversation at times, very, very polite, very supportive, people orienting each other to etiquette in that space. And I think people were very appreciative of it. I know that when Alchemy Film Festival followed shortly thereafter in their model, they did a single live stream, but they made the chat available just before and after for 15 minutes of each of their programs, which was very civilized and very respectful of the work, which I really appreciated. But I also, when I think about the Ann Arbor Film Festival, we happen at a beautiful historic 1920s art house cinema in downtown Ann Arbor with a 1,600 seat main auditorium. And it's a very animated live audience that's there when, if there might be film starting late or a little technical difficulty, the whole audience starts to, might get very playful. You might hear bird calls start, that sort of thing. So I was very surprised at the level of sense of community that was out there during the time that we presented the festival, and I was surprised at how much I felt like it takes place in our heads. Although saying that we are an embodied festival is very important for us to happen in person. I'm not sure what that's going to look like this year. I'm very skeptical that we can actually, even if things are to open up, I don't know that we want to try to draw anybody to come here if there's a risk factor to it. We don't want to participate in any, exacerbation of the situation. So I do think that people are hungry for participation and that sense of exchange. So I think as we're starting to plan for the 2021 festival, we're trying to think of how to expand upon that. We did do filmmaker discussions after each of the screenings and had a very high participation rate, as you can imagine. People kind of dropped in from all over the world from their living spaces. And we did hear a lot of positive feedback that the filmmakers appreciated that very much, the audience, and similar to what we're doing here, the audience could participate by sending their questions in, and the moderator would field those and deliver them. But I think in terms of that, the question of how will the hybrid festival happen in March, it's still such an unknown target. But at some point, we're going to have to put, a pin in the map and say, we have to proceed in this direction from here. And it's looking more and more like our emphasis may be with the online piece, and that we'll try to innovate in terms of what can we do in person that's maybe a smaller piece of the festival in March 2021.
But do you think that you then would also change the type of films that you might program, like really having this online sensibility in your programming, or would you still try to keep like the Ann Arbor kind of feel to the selection that you have?
I think the latter, really. I think that looking at the 3-year plan moving out, we will return to an embodied festival. We will return to the Michigan Theater. Hopefully they're going to survive they're a very important part of our community. So every decision that I think that we're making now about how to execute this year is keeping that picture in mind. So in terms of any innovation, I think the programming will remain the same. It's really dependent on the work that we receive in the competition, and that we want to the strongest work is what we want to put forward, what rises to the top. We want to put that forward, and we'll continue to do that. In terms of innovating in programming, I think it has more to do with maybe some of the extracurricular type of work. I'm really curious to know if artists are innovating in this format, for example. Are people doing Zoom performances? Are people, we celebrate the art of the moving image, and this is the moving image right here. So I'm very curious about that, and would love to highlight any work that people are doing in this even further expanded sort of take on what could expanded cinema be.
Yeah. And Doris, you're just two days into your festival, but do you already have the feeling now, like if next year would be a similar situation, that you would change something? Because I know with your curation, it's also really aimed at the cinema experience.
Yeah, I hope and I think, and I'm sure we will learn a lot now from this year's edition. So I'm really curious about the numbers we get after the festival. We'll have a deeper look into them afterwards, not now. But yeah, you mentioned a lot of things already, but the technical aspect, I think, is very important. As festivals, we are used to providing the best possible implementation in the cinema. And there we have everything under our control, but as soon as we only deliver the content, the control ends there. And the email boxes were full with complaints, for example, regarding the problem that people couldn't watch the movies, our movies on their iPhones. For me, it was not a real problem. I don't want people watching I really appreciate on their small mobile phone screens. But yeah, it works now. So we solved this problem, but it's really difficult imagining people watching our films on their small screen. I cannot really, I don't agree. Maybe we should think of, not providing this technical aspect for the people. I don't know. This would be one idea. And for us, the curated programs are really important. So for the festival pass holders, it is only possible to view the whole program, not for the accredited people. They can watch the single films as well. But for all the others, we just provide the programs and not the single films. This is very important for us. I don't know if we will change this in future. I hope not, because I think it's our duty as a festival to present the films in the most possible, or we as a festival want to present the films in programs, and this makes sense for us.
Yeah.
And I hope also for the audience. yeah, I'm sure we will learn a lot, and I think it's a process. And for us, it just started. So I don't know what the future really will bring for us, but I'm sure we will stick to this infrastructure going online in a way. But definitely, we want to go back in the cinema. So in Austria, the cinemas can open, I think,
in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, okay.
Yeah.
Time's moving. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm really looking forward, and yeah, it's a pity we cannot present the films in the cinema. And yeah, we have a lot of films that would better be shown in the cinema.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was watching a panel the other day with sales agents and distributors, and there it was the topic that came to mind for a lot of people was if our way of consuming VOD content now will change because you have this period of massive VOD usage. So somebody also dropped in the chat, for instance, that people watching on phone are probably casting it to their television so that people are more easily watching it in good ways through online. And also that films that we thought don't really have an online audience, that we would say like these are too difficult, actually find an online audience, that we find out that there is actually a need for that. But also that, for instance, we're finding out that people actually want to pay for content, which is one of my biggest concerns at the moment with short film, because everybody's offering short films for free at the moment. So it feels that people are maybe even getting more accustomed to watching films for free. But more returning to this question of like how our VOD consumption will change, I'm curious to know, like, when we return to this more normal situation, if we think that the online extension of a festival actually becomes really a viable part, that maybe next to the screenings in the cinema, that having a specific part online starts making sense. Maybe this also ties in a little bit with Helene already saying that this expanded media part would be something that you want to keep doing online. How do you guys feel about this? Maybe Helene, why did you think already about this expanded cinema? Like, why would that be a part that you would want to keep doing online, for instance?
Well, that was just because it has certain advantages also for the creators themselves of these VR works, because they normally, right now, we could invite people from Oculus, from LA, to be on our jury and to attend like the events with us, and otherwise we wouldn't have had the money to pay for their travel costs, basically. So that was one of the ideas why I think it's good, because it's actually for creators from Central and Eastern Europe, it's very, very hard to get their work out there. There are hardly any VR events, like in Cannes or Venice, you don't see people from Central and Eastern Europe. So that was one idea, and also because it was fun, and I can see that it will keep developing in this way. And it's a competition that has an experimental nature, so it just fits basically. And I'm absolutely not against VOD. I think it's great, but right now traditionally it's just like the end of the line in the distribution cycle, right? And it's usually something that's not exclusive. And I just canceled my Netflix subscription 2 weeks ago out of anger and frustration, because I just think it's a mess and it's not curated at all, and there's a lot of bullshit on there. But there are platforms like DA Films from Central Europe that partner with documentary film festivals, for instance, and then do a special lineup together with festivals, and they've been doing that for years, and they do a great job. And I can also imagine that maybe Mubi does I think they have like a Cannes program already. I don't think festivals have to do this for themselves, because why would we have to think about these streaming options all the time? We have better things to do. It's boring. But there are good providers out there that are not big and bad, and that we could partner with. And I think that's actually a good option, so that the films that we show are seen more, and it might also arouse more curiosity. But it shouldn't be the only option. It really shouldn't, because we lose a part of our audience. And I think we are privileged with good internet. We can work from home. We know how Zoom works, but there are plenty of people out there who don't have this privilege, also in Germany and in the town where our festival takes place. And also, like, we have a lot of older audiences, for instance, also with Eastern European migration background. I don't see them streaming our festival or putting on a VR headset at home. That's not going to happen. So.
Yeah. And Emilia, you already mentioned before a bit that you now reach such a big audience with the online part you did together with the archive, but also that you programmed more older films for that. Like, if you're now thinking about like an online extension, do you already have like forms in your mind, or is it just that?
No, I may basically, because unfortunately I don't have a whole new budget for the August edition, because my festival was basically ready in March. So I cannot reprogram the whole thing. I'm now trying to be more creative in terms of, like, for instance, keeping the industry part online. And I think this is that everybody would possibly agree with me that making industry program online is the best possible way to also like limit our carbon trace or obsession of going to plus 25 festivals per year. And this is a big problem that we just accelerated the solutions, and many things like working from home, attending industry programs or industry events from home, it's becoming the new normal, which I fully support. But with curating something new, I rather think of maybe preparing some special programs for August, but also I really work closely with our local audience, and I just want to give them the possibility that if they want to attend a physical festival, there will be either outdoor cinema or also normal cinema under new sanitary regime available for them, but also keeping some parts online. Let's not only people from industry, people from abroad coming without that carbon trace, but also, for instance, people with disabilities or any other groups of audience that before was simply excluded. Of course, now we have to deal, as Helen mentioned, some sort of digital exclusion, which is also there, and that's a big challenge we need to address. But I think we would have this discussion nevertheless, but further in future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Leslie and Doris, do you see like an extension happening for the festival? I think, Leslie, you're quite positive about it, also with the performing parts of the festival, what you mentioned before.
Sure. I also think that we've been talking about different models of how to take what we've learned from this last March and apply it. We saw like 16,000 streams of the festival through our 6-day festival. So people tuned in from 50 different countries, and so we see there's there's an interest out there in what we're doing. So we did make our festival available for free. Part of that was a small part was, as I had mentioned, in such a small time frame, we wanted to make the technical barriers as simple, as we could. So on our end, but also for the audience. And we also, as the pandemic was sort of starting to set in, we really felt like we wanted to offer something to the community. So that's why we did it for free. We did lose out on ticket sales, obviously. We did do some fundraising during the live stream, but what we've talked about in terms of a future model, and so far we've been talking about having a hybrid, mostly in person, but I think our perspective is starting to shift on that. But the idea would be that we maybe could stream everything as we did, but then offer films as a pay-per-view afterwards. And that started in our thinking with, at the very least, maybe stream the awarded films that we have typically 2 programs on the Sunday night of the festival, that we would stream those for free, but then allow folks to see those as a pay-per-view afterwards. And then that could sort of be scaled in many different ways. And I think it's been very informative watching so many festivals online now and different models of how things are being done. So I'm not sure what we're going to do, but definitely there's an interest there and an enthusiasm for what we're offering. So we want to make sure to be able to reach people.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Oh, Emilia? Yeah.
I just wanted to add that I think we would also all agree that this year has been just a huge experiment to all of us and a completely new, unusual situation. And also maybe most of our online activities, which happened pretty early, were so popular because this was also some sort of novelty for the audience. And we would also have to think how to keep them watching, because, for instance, I think in the beginning of May, or end of April, I checked the statistics of online museum tours. So first week of pandemic, there was a peak, of course, in the in the online visits, but then, of course, it kept dropping. And now museums are very happy, at least in Poland, that they can reopen because they can win their audience back. So this economy of attention, it's a pretty, I think, relevant term these days that we have to. I never felt before that, or never ever I felt that Netflix is anyhow a competition to Shortwaves Festival or anything that neither of all of us we do. So we also have to think about our audience and somehow finding new strategies to also keep them next year if we want to do some online things. And also right now, I can give you one small example of what other digital challenges we have. For instance, the fact that Glasgow Shirt and Shirtwaves were happening more or less same days was never an issue. But if we are both going online at the same time and we will not join forces somehow, it's kind of like nonsense, right? So we all have to also think that if everybody will stream everything at the same time without any geo-blocking, it's just one big mess. And I don't think we want this.
Yeah. Maybe this is a good moment to shortly dive, because I wrote something down that I find this interesting, that now we suddenly have the feeling that we're competing, like a festival in Poland with a festival in Scotland. But that I have the feeling now that it's much more about that it's much more possible to really dive into your audience on more local and national scale. I remember when I was talking to you, Doris, that we also talked about that suddenly you can reach people outside of Vienna in Austria. And I think that, like, I'm also not super enthusiastic about this move online, especially now when everything is kind of like quick solutions. But I think that the potential of reaching your audience better is one of the main attractive things in it. Doris, with Vienna Shots, did you now also did the communication strategy also change a bit going towards the festival, because it's now probably less focused on Vienna and more like on Austria? Or can you talk about that maybe?
Yeah. We decided to use geo-blocking, so the films for the open public is just available in Austria and not internationally. The reason is we want to present the films in the way that they benefit from it, and not to harm any films or harm the further premieres in other countries. So this was our decision. But yeah, it's good in the one hand because we have visitors from all over Austria now, and internationally definitely as well, because with the accreditations you can watch the films also from all over the world. But we changed a bit. I mean, for the digital marketing, we widened our perspective. It's not just Vienna. We don't use posters anymore and just putting it out in the city center, but we are more focused on digital marketing now. So obviously it works and it helps a lot. Yeah, in this situation, I'm really glad that we have a new audience out there. That helps, I think. Mm-hmm.
And Leslie, you went worldwide. I mean, you're quite enthusiastic about that. Could you talk a bit about that? Maybe like, how did you, like, do you know who your audience was? Is Ann Arbor like that big of a brand that people will find the festival all over the world? Or do you notice that it's still quite focused on maybe more like within the state or within the US, the attention?
Well, I think because we've been around for about 58 years now, we have we're well known worldwide, but in a very narrow area of experimental and avant-garde film. We find that the Ann Arbor Film Festival does put our town of Ann Arbor on the map globally, again, in this more narrow field. So when somebody says, I showed in Ann Arbor, and they're talking about their film, even though, you know, there's several film festivals here, I think in this community, everybody understands it's the Ann Arbor Film Festival. So I think it allowed a lot of people who couldn't travel to Ann Arbor to see the festival, and many for the first time. I think people have a desire to see what we're doing and to attend. So we do have a bit of a reputation, and again, it's, you know, we're 58, so we've been around for many years.
Yeah. Was already slowly nearing the end of the talk, and I still have a lot of questions, but I also saw a lot of questions already coming in. Maybe kind of also following up on this, somebody asked, Tess Martin asked, how to keep people engaged for the events that remain online. So this is also kind of this online fatigue that Emilia was already referencing to. Does anybody have an idea for this, or is this also kind of that we have to grow into this as an audience?
I think with shorts, there's already an advantage because they're short, and if people have a short attention span, like with feature length films, it is really different. Well, I think one thing that we did completely differently, we had like an opening and a closing ceremony online also. We pre-recorded it because we had been watching some of the other ceremonies that were live, and they were charming, like student amateur television, but also really long with technical difficulties, and then funders coming in with their messages, and you know, you're just like, oh, you die from boredom basically. So we decided to have the shortest opening ceremony ever, which was just under 10 minutes. And actually we pre-recorded it, but we put it live. So then we also had like a live chat with people reacting, and that was a lot of fun also for our team, but I guess also for it wasn't a huge audience that was watching, but still they watched it. And the same with the award ceremony. We also tried to keep it really lively. But yeah, it's there's just a lot of competition out there, and making things faster and snappier in the end is also not a solution. So
I think this what now is happening with Vienna Shorts as well, and what you did, Leslie, with the live screenings is like one thing that at least triggers me to watch it quicker, because it's not like, I remember with Go Short, I had a list of films that I wanted to see. The festival was online for a month, but I didn't sit down to watch the films just because things kept popping up, while I've already watched 2 or 3 programs now with Vienna Shorts, just because it goes live and you just sit down for it and tune in. So I feel like this, when you also said before, Emilia, that suddenly Netflix is your competition, it's also more that you just offer this selection and it's kind of for people to choose, to pick and choose what they want, but that is live element, I could imagine that that's definitely a step which goes the most in the way of creating this festival atmosphere as well. At least you have the feeling that other people are watching as well. Maybe you see somebody posting on Facebook about it. With opening, I was also looking in the chat box what was happening, and that you see people reacting to the films and everything. So I think that's also to keep people more engaged, and also to have a bit more of a reason to tune in, is this live element. Like, you catch it live or you miss it. I think this is also quite a good motivation for an audience.
I would add also that not only urgency, but really creating a sense of community, which is possible. It's difficult, it's different, because we don't see these people, we don't get this, as I used to call it, this instant gratification to see the full screening room, which is part of our work, and we love it. We love this sense of crowd, but definitely seeing interactions between the people, not only that we initiate the interaction, but also see that there's a, I don't know, even a stupid Facebook group that you create, and there are interactions between the people. And also, of course, especially in digital space, if there's an interaction happening, people really quickly pick it up. And as you said, when they use your hashtags, comment on your content, it just feels more vivid and more nice to be there. But also, I have to say that, at least from our experience, I was surprised that, because there is not so much happening, that mainstream media that usually would not pick the stories about an online festival were very eager to do so.
Same here. Yeah, we had like reports on Arte. We were on the national news all of a sudden. It's like, why? Yeah. But I guess that's also the novelty of it, isn't it? But it's great. I mean, shortwaves all over Poland. It's good.
I was also thinking that what you said, this gratification of seeing an audience, that's for me as a distributor, and kind of talking from the perspective as a filmmaker, that's now the most difficult thing, that you don't really know if a festival was a success. Like, you don't have, yesterday, All Cats Are Grey in the Dark screened, you see the Q&A of Lasse afterwards in a video message, but he wasn't there in front of an audience and feeling this atmosphere of people laughing and everything. I think that's still also something for, like, especially if these industry events remain digitally for a while, like, how do you give filmmakers this feeling of kind of gratification of attending a festival, but also help it, like, how will it still be kind of beneficial for their career to be in the festival, besides that it's like, oh, I've been selected in these festivals, this is good to have on my resume, but that they actually meet people. That's, I think, still one of the biggest challenges, really, to how we can help out filmmakers in their career.
Yeah, and curating is not just about selecting films, it's about selecting people as well, isn't it? And put them in a place and make sure that they kind of profit from each other, or that like a new narrative also comes up. Yeah.
But and also for your festival, Helene, what you said before when we talked, that a lot of films get picked up by distributors often after your festival. This is then for the features, but that's probably also has to do with, like, probably a dynamic during the festival, or how it's received in the festival. So that's also, again, something that you miss out on.
It's not a lot, but yes, it is definitely something that's important, because we're so specialized. So people do look at the lineup, and then at the press, how they react. So that is also something that would actually hinder us from putting stuff online as an extension for the festival, because you don't want to damage the future of those films, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Then maybe it's almost 6 already. Do the festivals that you've now visited the past months, weeks, have you noticed anything that you feel that we still can improve on? Like, what could still be something you feel that this could be better? We already talked a bit about things like how we can keep people engaged and everything, but have you noticed anything specific that you think like, okay, we still have to find a way to perfect this part?
Yeah, I think if I may answer, I think the most difficult part is really connecting people. And we use this Vevox app now, and you can chat there live with other filmmakers and our audience, and this really works, and I'm glad it works. But yeah, the filmmakers are really happy with the feedback they get there and the questions they get there. But I think we really need some technology, and you mentioned this world already, Helene. We wanted to use it, but it was not manageable for us in time. But I think we really need the situation to speak with, or to have this intense feeling or festival atmosphere also in the online world, and I'm still missing it. I really like watching the films from my bed, and I enjoy that, but I'm really missing you out there. So yeah, I think this we will have to deal with this new situation from this new perspective, and I really want to meet you in Vienna or on my screen, but yeah, meeting you more intensely would be helpful for us as a festival, I think.
Yeah,
I totally agree with Doris. The worst part so far at every film festival I attended online, sorry guys, but online parties, they are terrible. I haven't attended a single party at Vienna, but the ones before, basically streaming a DJ set.
There will be a live concert on Sunday, so I hope this works for you, Emilia. Maybe you join us.
You should have looked better at the schedule before you said this, Emilia.
Well, a concert is fine, but just a DJ being streamed, I don't know. I know it's hard. I don't have a good answer for this because, of course, this element of festival get-togethers are so important. But yeah, so far I'm investigating. If you will find a voter anything or anyone a good example of online parties, please let me know. I have to find a solution before August. So
yeah. I did a live DJ set where everybody was connected through Zoom. I think during Vision de Riel, they also did a live drinks that way. And then you at least have a little bit of sense of community. But half of the time I was working and laying on my couch while watching the DJ set. So I don't know if I contributed a lot to that party. But I think like at least seeing people, that always adds to at least that you have the feeling that there's more people there. But yeah, that's also how I experience it. Leslie, Helene, closing remarks from you about things that you saw that you still think could be better? Or?
No, it's mostly about the things that we could do better, to be honest. And I think I already mentioned some of them. And even this virtual world, which was great, like technically it didn't always work, but the glitches were also fun, actually. Like if there's people with different versions of the software in the same VR chat room, then it can happen that they are in different versions of this world, basically. So one person sees the image on the screen, the other one doesn't. And the nicest moment we ever had, we had virtual champagne glasses. With nothing, so you could join together and drink nothing together. And then all of a sudden there was this glitch and they just kept flying through the air, like everywhere, and it didn't stop. And everyone had to get out and get back into. So technical stuff like that kept on happening. And it also invited people to get really rowdy. Like they were throwing with things and jumping down the balcony. That was fun, but it can definitely be improved on.
Yeah.
Because I hope that people won't adopt this behavior when they get back to the cinema.
I guess for me, I've been visiting lots of different festivals online, and I think it's helpful when the user interface is very easy. For us, we know what our festival is shaped like. We understand the pieces and the parts, and sometimes it's hard to put ourselves in the shoes of the person who's tuning in. And when they come to your website, is it easy for them to get to the films? Is it easy for them to understand how how everything is situated. And so I guess I would put in a good word for remembering the viewer's experience and how they're going to connect with your programs.
Yeah. I think this is building a website is always the most horrible thing in how people that don't know your festival will find stuff. So, okay, so it's 6:05, so I think we'll be wrapping up. Thank you all for joining us from all over the world. I saw that there's some questions that were left unanswered, but a couple, like for instance about how festivals adapted to guidelines, were answered more in the talk that took place yesterday, which is still online, so you can just revisit that. And that's a bit more about festivals still accepting films, how they adapted to the rules. So yeah, thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.